Spicy matchups.
I don't know if this is a spicy matchup or not. I could have put this in big boys with big spreads, but I'll throw it in there because it is an SEC game. Number one, Georgia at South Carolina. The Gamecocks have not looked impressive, in my opinion, the first 2 weeks of the season. Spencer Rattler kind of turning out to be what we all kind of thought he was at the end of his run there at Oklahoma. So you get this Georgia team. Last week they played, I believe, Samford of the SCS. Unimpressive, but whatever. 33-0 non-cover against Samford. So Georgia laid a big old number on the road. I know, Matt, you are one who gets intrigued by seeing home teams catching a whole bunch of points. Any interest to get in front of this Georgia freight train laying 24.5 at South Carolina?
Not interested. Not going to jump in front of that one. I think Georgia right now is proving it's the number one team in college football. And Stetson Bennett has gone from being a guy who was disrespected as a game manager to a guy who's actually a playmaker right now. He's been looking pretty good. Michelle Musburger of VSiN set me up on a radio show in South Carolina a week ago. And they wanted to grill me about the South Carolina-Auburn game. And I said, well, in week one, Spencer Rattler was the lowest-rated quarterback in the SEC. And the Gamecocks are going on the road here against an Arkansas team that's probably going to beat them up and win by double digits. And these guys were upset by my prediction that Arkansas was going to win that game. Arkansas won.
Were you correct?
Arkansas won the game 44-30, more physical team. South Carolina's still got a ways to go. Tim, you and I think, talked about it last week. The Gamecocks had a couple of fluke scores the previous week. And
they were outgained by Georgia State. Yeah. They had 2 block punts, multiple 50-yard field goals.
Yeah, so I'm not that impressed with the way South Carolina's played so far, and I think what you're going to see here is a lot of people betting Georgia in the first half too. That's going to be kind of where Alabama's been a really public play for the last how many years? 10 years? Alabama first half?
19-7-1 now after losing last week in the first half, last 2 years.
I typically don't make those bets, but I know they're popular with a lot of people to play the first half. I just think Georgia's too likely to roll in this game, so I'm not going to jump in front of Georgia.
Well, if you're interested in that first half bet, it looks like DraftKings still has a 14 out there. Everywhere else is 14.5 or higher. I know a game that you're involved in. I'm actually involved in, too. I think this is maybe a buy low spot. Catching LSU as a home night dog. Mm-hmm. Can't make too much about playing Southern. They're up 51-0 last week, but they're taking on Mississippi State. They have looked impressive the first 2 weeks of the season. They cover late night against Arizona last weekend. Does Mississippi State beat up on Memphis week 1? And now they're laying points on the road against LSU. This opened 3 at Circa. I was able to jump in and grab the 3. It is down to 2.5 pretty much across the board. What do you see on Saturday night at Death Valley? Yeah. LSU hosting Mississippi State.
Yeah, like I say, I make my own numbers on Saturday night, usually on about 20 or 25 games. There are some games you're not going to bet.
Yeah.
You just don't want to waste time making a number. I made LSU a 1.5-point favorite. So just like you, when those numbers open at Circa, I'd grab 3 plus 3, and I was surprised to see Mississippi State open as a road favorite. But that's the second week in a row, and I got burned. I bet against Mississippi State last week. I think I was burned more by Arizona's poor quarterback play in that game than anything. Will Rogers, the MSU quarterback's off to a hot start. 763 yards, 9 touchdowns. And Mississippi State can look pretty good when their pass offense is clicking. But the problem is they have trouble running the ball, and I think they're going to have a lot of trouble running the ball in this game against the LSU defense. Jaden Daniels, aside from that first half against Florida State, looks like he's starting to find a groove in the offense, even though you can't make too much of a game against Southern last week. I don't have a long list of reasons why I like LSU in this game, even though I do think Jaden Daniels has picked up the Kelly offenses and playing better. If you give me LSU as let's say a field goal home dog in a game that Brian Kelly needs to win against Mike Leach, I'll take Brian Kelly. And I think Kelly and the Tigers were really unlucky in that first game. And, they got off to a poor start in the first half, too. But I think this LSU team still got a chance to maybe win 7 or 8 games if they get their act together. This is a must-win type of game early in the season before the schedule gets really tough. And it's a play on my numbers as much as anything, where I make LSU a small favorite, and I'm catching 2.5 or 3. I'm going to play it with what I think is a better coach.
Staying in the SEC, a non-conference game. We saw it last year, Matt. Number 22 Penn State goes down between the hedges or not between the hedges, down to Auburn, and they will be laying 3 on the road. Auburn, not impressive last week. Maybe a look-ahead spot to Penn State. They played San Jose State. They actually trailed at the half in that one, ultimately pulled it out 24-16. Tank Bigsby is going to be leaned on a lot, I imagine, in this one. Had 13 carries for 51 yards against San Jose State, who, by the way, really looked lackluster in their season opener against Portland State. But, thinking back to those Game of the Year lines, this was opened up Auburn -1. It has moved 4 points. It's staying steady there. Penn State laying 3. Nittany Lions laying points on the road against the Tigers. I'll just say this, not a play for me. I just can't trust Brian Harsin, but I'm not going to be laying 3 with Penn State here on the road.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Brian Harsin's still the coach at Auburn after this season. I was surprised when he was hired, Tim.
Yeah.
It seemed like a very bad fit. But I wrote about this game a little bit. It's up on vsin.com and my top plays this week. I just think you have to avoid overreacting to Auburn's unimpressive start. TJ Finley has not played well at quarterback. He's got 1 TD pass, 3 interceptions in 2 games. Tigers needed a second-half comeback to beat San Jose State. Yeah, that's not a good sign. But look at this game a little bit more. I think Tank Bigsby is going to be the guy that Auburn's going to lean on here, one of the toughest runners in the SEC. And this is still a Penn State defense that gave up 365 yards passing to Purdue in that season opener. And Sean Clifford pulled that one out of the fire with a late drive, last-minute touchdown drive. Purdue should have won that game. Penn State was fortunate to win that thing on the road, and I think Penn State's going to be in a similar situation here at Auburn. Tim, I made the number Auburn -2.5.
Ooh.
And for Penn State to be a 3-point favorite, that's a big flip in terms of, like I said, my numbers are not always right, but I have to trust my numbers when I'm making plays. And Auburn as a home dog, a team that I think should be a slight favorite. It's going to be a play for me, and I was not all that impressed with what I've seen from Penn State so far. So I'm not sure why this number has flipped so much from where it was in the preseason. Auburn +3 is one of my best bets this week.
All right, there you go. We will recap all our best bets at the end of the podcast. Keep it rolling along. A team that got a ton of hype. We mentioned some bet regrets. One of my biggest regret in our Week 1 podcast was not taking the points with East Carolina. That was a game I had talked about all summer long, chickened out last second, and NC State was fortunate to get out of Greenville with a win. Now a really interesting non-conference showdown against Texas Tech. NC State's laying 10 here. I would love to take the points with Texas Tech, but I hate the situational spot. They just needed overtime in an emotionally charged game against Houston. Donovan Smith had his ups, had his downs, threw 3 picks in that game. Super athletic quarterback filling in for Tyler Shuck, who went down in that opener against Murray State. I was not one of these people all in on the NC State hype train, but they're laying 10 at home. So if Texas Tech was coming off of Murray State, I would be much more inclined to look towards the Red Raiders here. I think Joey McGuire is a great hire by Texas Tech. Zach Kitley comes over from Western Kentucky, if anyone remembers what they were able to do offensively last year. So an intriguing game, night game down in Raleigh. Pass for me, but if it wasn't for that overtime win last week against Houston, I would probably look at the Red Raiders.
Donovan Smith, you talked about it. There was some good and there was some bad, but it looked like Tech was going to lose that game. It was 4th and 20. Mm-hmm. That's one that's going to give Dana Holgorsen nightmares. That's just sick for Houston to lose a game like that. That was a lucky win for Texas Tech. The Red Raiders go on the road after that, and I don't like the situation for them here. So I'm going to pass on this one.
Couple games to wrap up the spicy matchups of the weekend. We've got Texas at home taking on UTSA, and then Fresno State at number 7 USC.
I think these are 2 of the most fascinating games of the weekend.
So let's get to UTSA at Texas. So UTSA made me a loser on one of my best bets last week. I took the points with Army at 2.5. Game goes to overtime. I think you should get a win for that because I bet that 60 minutes in, Matt, it would be a tie game.
I'll tell you a quick funny story about that. I was out at Station Casinos, Red Rock Station last week, and I was going to bet Army. And I walked up to the counter. I was like, should I take the money line or the 2.5? And while I was walking to the counter, I flipped from 2.5 to 3. So I took Army plus 3. That's a lucky break, huh? Lucky. But Army,
I did not get that lucky.
I thought Army probably should have won the game.
Yeah, up 14 points.
But UTSA's been in a couple wild coin flip games here early in the season. Lost one, won one.
So what's interesting about this line is we're sitting here on Thursday afternoon recording this. The line keeps slowly creeping back towards the opener of Texas. So this is now sitting at 13. It was opened at 14, saw a steady stream, got as low as 10, Matt, and now has bounced all the way back up. I really want to bet UTSA here. Quinn Ewers is obviously out. What a loss for Texas. You're coming off of just a gut punch of a game you probably should have won, Matt, against Alabama. Everything involved in that. Biggest attendance in the history of Texas. And now you got UTSA, about an hour 15 from Austin. First time in school history they're playing Texas. I think you can make a strong argument, especially with Hudson Card maybe being out on Saturday, that Frank Harris could be the best quarterback in this game, UTSA's quarterback. He's been playing really well. So, I don't know why the number keeps trickling back up. If it gets to 14, I'm jumping all over it. And even at 13, I probably would take the points. Maybe it's a sucker bet, but I think it's a clear letdown spot for Texas. And give me the Roadrunners, a well-coached team. And I would love Sincere McCormick being on this team for this game. But my biggest worry why I think Texas could win this game is Bijan Robinson. Does Bijan Robinson just go absolutely nuclear, run for 200 yards?
Probably.
And just, basically plant the Roadrunners into the turf?
Well, if you can play Bijan Robinson rushing prop over, do it, because he's going to be the focus of the offense here. It looks like Charles Wright could be the starting quarterback for Texas, a redshirt freshman from Austin High School who's never attempted a pass in his career. So if Hudson Card can't go, it's Charles Wright, the number 3 quarterback. That's quite a downgrade from Quinn Ewers to Charles Wright in 1 week. When Ewers, I agree with you. If he doesn't get knocked out of that game, Texas beats Alabama.
100%.
And in fact, Bama got bailed out on 2 big calls by the officials in that game. Took 1 non-call on a hold.
Clear hold on the corner.
Clear hold on the run, and what I thought should have been a safety that wasn't called too. So Bama got kind of bailed out in that game. But Texas, a lot of pats on the back this week for the Longhorns. Moral victory, losing to Alabama 21-20. That atmosphere was electric in Austin. This is going to be UTSA's Super Bowl, Tim. And Frank Harris has played really well, 337 and 359. His passing yards in the first 2 games. Like you said, he's going to be the best quarterback on the field. I'm going to split this bet up. I'm playing UTSA half unit in the first half and UTSA half unit for the game, and I'm going to wait. I might grab the 13. I didn't think this number is going to go back up. Like I said, you can see on my sheet here, I made numbers on Saturday night. I made Texas 10, and it opened 14. And you said it kind of surprised me it's moving back to 13. I thought it was going to continue to move to 10 with the news that Charles Wright could be the quarterback.
Well, I'll tell you this right now. I'm looking at it. UTSA plus 7 in the first half. I really like that. That's a good call, because I do wonder if the depth just kind of gets to UTSA. Also, they've played in 2 straight overtime games. Eventually, you look at these teams aren't built the same way depth-wise as these Power Fives are. So the energy there, maybe a sluggish start for a quarterback making his first start. Likely, not official, but likely there with Hudson Card banged up. So, yeah, I think plus 7 first half is a really good look. I'll join you on that one. Last one, late night. We love the late night games. Fresno State at number 7, USC. Look, USC, they're tremendous offensively. There's no denying that, Matt. But their defense, we'll see. Rice was able to get yards on them. Stanford, was able to get yards on them. But they have been opportunistic, maybe a bit lucky. I would say more lucky than opportunistic. But they're plus 8 in the turnover margin right now. You and I are big Jake Haener guys. And can he sling it around? I know he had some big quotes this week saying that USC was his dream school, didn't get recruited by him, kind of said it with a smirk on his face. So Fresno State goes into USC, goes into the Coliseum, a night game. They're catching 12 against USC. And as you mentioned, sometimes take a look at what books have what, right? We think that Circa for college football, probably the sharpest maybe in the world. They're at 11.5. Everywhere else is at 12. Not a huge discrepancy, but still just kind of tells you something. Is Fresno intriguing enough in this spot against USC for you?
Not quite. I can't quite get there, Tim. I made USC minus 15 and Circa opened 12. And I made this 15 after I watched the replay of Oregon State Fresno. And I was already furious at the end of the game because I had Fresno and they lost on the last play of the game. Yeah. And I waffled on that all week, and I made a late decision. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play Fresno. You talk about regrets? I wish I hadn't played Fresno. I've been pissed off about that game for 5 days. Okay.
You mad after a loss?
You get pissed off too. That's why I think you get.
I get more mad.
I think you get even angrier than I do about losses, and I throw TVs around sometimes. But Fresno's defense was so bad in that game, Tim, and this is not an explosive Oregon State offense, and the Beavers went up and down the field against Fresno. So what's USC going to do? I don't want to, and I've been really high on Fresno since the offseason. It was my pick to win the Mountain West over the win total of 8.5 and all that. But after watching the Fresno defense last week, I don't think I can get there. USC last week, probably I had Stanford, and that was a loser. I took Stanford plus 9, I think, in that game and lost by 13, 41-28. USC should have put up 60 points in that game. Kind of let off the gas and had a couple of breakdowns in the second half when the game got kind of bogged down. But I'm not sure how Fresno's going to get stops here. Now, it's going to be.
That's why the total's 74.5.
Right. And we knew these USC totals were going to get sky high. I don't think the USC defense is going to get a lot of stops on Fresno either. Jake Haener, you talked about his dream job, or his dream school would have been USC to be the quarterback. He went to the Rose Bowl and beat UCLA in one of the great performances by any quarterback last season. He's going to have to play just that well to give the Bulldogs a chance to pull the upset here. I'm concerned, Tim, over 60 minutes whether Fresno can keep pace with this USC offense. And I hate to play over a total of 74. That's so high. But I don't see either defense getting many stops in this game. And I'm so disgusted by the way Fresno defended that last series of the game. Did you watch the last play of the game?
Yeah.
Oregon State brought in the Wildcat quarterback.
The linebacker.
Yeah. Coletto, Jack Coletto. The Wildcat quarterback, and the commentator even says, every time Coletto comes in, he either runs right up the middle or off the right side. So Fresno, of course, puts no defenders on the left side of the defensive line, and Coletto walks into the end zone on the last play of the game. What are you doing? Jeff Tedford and his staff asleep at the wheel. I've been so upset about that game. I can't bet Fresno again this week. That's it.
They're on the no-fly list for Matt.